Okay, so here's the quiz that you guys did on Friday. And I tried recording as I was doing the quiz today, and some things disappeared, so the format here may be a little junky. We'll see what happens. First question was 6x minus 18, and I've taught you that whenever you're asked to factor, the very first thing I want you to do is to look for a greatest common factor. So in 6x minus 18, you should be seeing that 6 divides evenly into 6 and into negative 18. And then you ask yourself, what do I multiply 6 by to get 6x? X. And what do I multiply 6 by to get negative 18? Must be negative 3. Same thing in question B. It's just that my greatest common factor now I have to look at 3 different terms. I see the 4, so I wonder if 4 goes into 6. It doesn't. But the next number that does is 2. So 2 goes into 4, it goes into 6, it also goes into negative 16. What do I multiply 2 by to get 4x squared? Must be 2x squared. 2 to get 6x must be 3x. 2 times 3x equals 6x. And 2 times negative 8 equals negative 16. Now question B was missing a little bit here. It got erased in the sort of formatting. Let's just fill that in. We've got, oh geez, not B but C. C was equal to 3, yeah, great. Maybe it'll show up here. 3y cubed minus 4y squared plus 8y. So the only thing that's common between the 3, the 4, and the 8 is a 1, which I don't write. But if you notice the y cubed, the y squared, and the y is common to all of them. And that leaves me with, let's see if this shows up, 3y squared minus 4y plus 8. That's it. Okay, we deal with how to factor these. This can't be factored, by the way, but we deal with how to factor them in the last 4 questions. Nothing. Anyways, that previous question, you can see it on your quiz. It was 4x times x plus 3 minus 1 times x plus 3, and the x plus 3 was the common bit. 4x minus 1 was left over. Okay, moving on to E. And again, like I said, this is all done now. So we'll just be going through the solutions. E was x squared plus 5x plus 6. And in this case, let me get a medium highlighter here. In this case, we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to give 6 and add to give 5. As soon as we see those, 2 and 3, we can fill in our factors, x plus 2 and x plus 3. In situations like this where a is equal to 1, the factors will always be a set of binomials, if they can be factored, that will always start with the square root of x squared or a squared or c squared. Right? 2 things that multiply together that make x squared. And then followed by whatever the 2 numbers are that we find. 2 numbers that multiply to give 6 and add to give 5 were 2 and 3. In this one, we've got a squared minus 10a plus 20. We start with a and a. We find the numbers that multiply to give 20 that add to give negative 10. So if they multiply to give positive 20 and add to give negative 10, then the 2 numbers must be negative. So I look at negative 1 and negative 20, negative 2 and negative 10, negative 4 and negative 5. And those are the only choices. And then I choose which ones add to give negative 10. But none of them do. So it can't be factored. We move on. Now G starts with a 2c squared. That's a little different than E and F up here. But the 2, you'll notice, is common to all of these. So I pull out that greatest common factor. I pull out the 2, I'm left with c squared plus 1c minus 12. Then this trinomial becomes like what we saw previously. 2 brackets, they both start with c. 2 numbers that multiply to give negative 12 and add to give positive 1. Multiply to give negative 12, so 12 and negative 1, 6 and negative 2, 4 and negative 3. There's some others, but as soon as I saw this one, I thought, wait a minute, that adds to 1. So I go c plus 4 and c minus 3. So the factors are 2 and c plus 4 and c minus 3. If this goes too fast, you just back it up, play it again. Now H. So last question on the first side of your quiz, t squared minus ts minus 42s squared. No number out in front, so I've got two brackets that are going to start with t. But this ts and the s squared bit here could throw some people off. It doesn't need to. Okay. I'm still looking for two numbers that multiply to give negative 42 and add to, in this case, give negative 1. So the numbers are going to be pretty close together. They have to be negative. One's going to be negative, one's going to be positive. Two numbers that multiply to give negative 42 are negative 7 and positive 6, or negative 6 and positive 7. But the only pair that add to negative 1 would be negative 6 and positive 6, or negative 7 and positive 6. So I plug those numbers into my brackets, and then I tack on the s's. Because it's negative 7s and positive 6s that will give me negative 42s squared. Now a lot of people ask, yeah, but what about the ts? So let's just check this one, just to make sure that you can see where the ts comes from. If I go t times t, I get t squared. T times 6s, I get positive 6st if I write it in alphabetical order. And negative 7s times t, I get negative 7st. And negative 7s times positive 6s, I get negative 42s squared. If I combine my like terms, positive 6st and negative 7st, that adds up to negative 1st. So t squared minus 1st, t squared minus ts, same thing. Doesn't matter that I write it in alphabetical order or not. And then minus 42s squared. Now, 4 more to do. 6a squared minus 2a minus 5. No common factor. So what I taught you is through the process of decomposition, I'm looking for two numbers that have a product of whatever the first times the last is. So they multiply to equal negative 30, and they have a sum, or they add to equal the middle term, the negative 2. I make a list of all the numbers that have a product of negative 30, so 1 and negative 30, 2 and negative 15, 3 and negative 10, 5 negative 6, etc. And then I look at all of those and find out which ones add to negative 2. So that doesn't, that doesn't, that doesn't. This is negative 1, positive 7, so all of these are positive. Nothing actually adds to negative 2. And if that's the case, then it can't be factored. In J, 3b squared plus 20b plus 12, we're looking at two numbers that multiply to give 36, add to give 20, positive, so 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12. These guys add to 20. So I use that to break up the middle term. So I get 3b squared plus 2b plus 18b plus 12. I factor by grouping. So I look at what's the greatest common factor in the first two, which is just the b. That leaves me with 3b plus 2. b times 3b is 3b squared. b times 2 is 2b. As soon as I know one bracket, I know the other, so I write it in. So I didn't actually know the 6 yet. I went b, bracket, space, bracket. And then I asked, what do I multiply 3b by to get 18b? And the answer had to be positive 6. Then I double check. Does 6 times 2 equal 12? Yes, it does. I write my common factors in front, 3b plus 2, and I use the leftover bits, b plus 6, to make my other factor. Finally, 2t squared minus 10ts plus 12s squared. I pulled out the greatest common factor, 2, from all of these, and it left me with a simple trinomial. Two numbers that multiply to give positive 6 but add to give negative 5 are negative 2 and negative 3. So t minus 2s, t minus 3s, I'm done. My factors, don't forget the 2, are 2 t minus 2s and t minus 3s. And then the last one, a little big, factored out my greatest common factor of 3. That left me with 8x squared minus 2x minus 21. Looking for two numbers that multiply to give negative 168 and add to give negative 2. So if they multiply to give a negative, one's positive, one's negative. So I made a list of all of them. 1 and negative 168, 2 and negative 84, 3 negative 56, 4 and negative 42, 6 and negative 28, etc. All the way down to 12 and negative 14. Bit of a sweat job on this one. Okay, that adds to negative 2. So I use those two numbers to break up the middle term. I get 8x squared plus 12x minus 14x minus 21. Factor by grouping. Common factor of 4x leaves me with 2x plus 3 and 2x plus 3. Negative 7 times 2x is negative 14x. Negative 7 times 3 is negative 21. So my factors are 3, the common factor of 2x plus 3, and the leftover bits of 4x minus 7. All right, hope that helps. Ciao.